I failed like 10 plus interviews, and then service-based company are giving you 15, 16 LPA. In data engineering part, we don't work on SQL, Python, and some tool. It took me around 2, 3 months to understand complete flow. Then applied to Naukri.com, to LinkedIn.com, and to some of my referrals. They ask me normal questions like we have one list and we want to reverse it.
A lot of people have been asking me to bring Azure Data Engineer because they wanted to understand how Azure Cloud works and how to learn Azure from the scratch. In this podcast, we have a guest, Sagar, who is an Azure Data Engineer. He's been working in this particular field for last 2 to 3 years. So if you're a fresher or a beginner who wants to get into Azure Cloud, then he is the right person to follow because he just started his journey 2 to 3 years back. So you can learn a lot of things from him. In this podcast, we discussed on a lot of different things, from how to become Azure Data Engineers, basic skills needed, what are the services where you can learn all of those things, what is the average package provided by industry for Azure Data Engineer, and many more. So I hope you enjoy this podcast and learn something new, and make sure you don't forget to hit the like button, and if you are new here, then don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Let's get started. All right, Sagar. Yeah, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming. And I've been following your content on Azure. A lot of people have been doing this, and Azure is being great, going like on the top on the cloud market. So, want to talk about a lot of different things in the data engineering aspect. So, generally, I start with this particular question: is how did you get started with the data engineering? Because a lot of people have different journey. Some people start with software engineering, some people start with like web development, Android development, but became a data engineer some way or other way. So want to understand your journey. How did you get started? Where did you complete your college? What was your first job, and how did you become a data engineer? Yeah.
So thank you, Darshil, for introducing me in your channel. I am Sagar Pachapati, and I hope this video would be very useful for all the users who want to become a data engineer or who wants to change a job from one domain to data engineer. So let me start my journey. So I completed my BTech from computer science branch from Chennai-based university. That was a tier 3 college or university, and I completed like 2 years back only. If I talk about my job-related things, then I started as an intern in 2019. I joined one organization that is in Hyderabad based company, and I joined as a data engineer role only. And my task was to, first, so the initial days was to monitor the jobs. Like we have a multiple jobs, right? We have a database job, we have a pipelines and so on. So what we wanted to do is that we wanted to just debug the flow, everything in from the scratch, and understand the flow, what is happening inside the job, and if it is failing, why it is failing, and so on. So my initial days was very, if I talk about honestly, that it was very tough for me because going to going from the college to the intern or to the IT corporate world, that was a very difficult journey for me because I did not know about the big data things or SQL things much more. Because like like uh, 2 3 years back, this data engineer is not in very demand. Like
Yeah.
from 2 3 years only, it is very demand. So it was very tough for me, and if it was very tough for me to understand the complete things in one shot. So it took me around 2 3 months to understand complete flow, what is data engineering, why we use Azure Databricks, why we use Spark, Hadoop, and those things.
So I understand like you had like a very like freshest background in the data engineering, right? You got your first internship, and like most of the people, you don't understand the data engineering domain at the start because like there are so many different tools. Like you need to learn cloud, Spark, Hadoop. All of those terms are thrown at you, so it becomes really difficult at the initial stage. So I guess the internship and your first job help you to understand these things better when you started getting the hands on. So want to understand like how did you start learning? Like what was the first step into data engineering? What it looks like? Like what was the first tool you worked on and you felt like okay, I'm doing some data engineering work?
So yeah, if I talk about my first job, that was I started my job in like to debug the Azure Data Factory. I worked on Azure Data Factory tool initially, and then I slowly move on to the Azure Databricks part, where I learn about Spark, what is architecture of Spark, why we are using Spark. Then I know a bit about Hadoop and the Spark, because at that time people or the company were using Hadoop also. Spark was not that too famous at that time. If I talk about 2 years back, 2020, right? So I slowly learn about Spark, what is the advantages of Spark, and then where we can use Spark. Like we have two things in Spark, right? One on-premise version and the cloud version. Cloud version is Azure Database.
Yeah.
So I started on Azure Database only, since my company was working on that tool. So I learn about multiple aspect of Azure Database and the Spark things. Then how to optimize the job. I remember when I joined my company, one job was taking too much time, like around 2 3 months, 2 3 days. Sorry, 2 3 days,
Yeah.
and it was like 1 TB of data, 1 TB of data. So how can we optimize that job? That is the
Yeah.
first role to understand.
So basically, what I understand is, you had a job of the like that was running for the 2 days, and your task was to optimize that current whatever the pipeline or ETL transformation job you had. So you worked on that, like you did some modification, you maybe optimize some query and try to reduce the time it takes to execute the job and increase the performance in the efficient manner. So that should be the goal of, yeah, right. So yeah, that is the, like the basic role of a data engineer, because generally whenever you go into company, some companies already have their tools and things written, and some companies have like messy code base. So your first job is to, existing code base, you need to improve it, so optimize it. So that is how things get started. So I understand this is how your journey got started. And you also learned about a lot of different things. So you started with the Azure cloud, so directly jumping onto the services, then to going with the on-premise route. So this is the general confusion people have, like where to get started, where do I learn this. So where did you learn all of this? Like, is there any online course, or you just read some random YouTube videos, or what it looks like learning these things at the initial stage? Yeah.
Learning part, I learned from YouTube and the online documents only, online blogs, which is present today also. And that was very useful for me to understand the complete thing from one end to end. And then I started giving certification of Azure related things, technologies like DP200, if I talk about, that is based on Azure Data Engineer, and then
Yeah.
DP900, like many certification we have it.
Yeah.
So like, by preparing the content of the certification, then I learned a lot of things. So I would recommend the freshers also, or who wants to become a data engineer, prepare for that certification. It is very useful for all of the users, like, or
Yeah.
or the aspirants who want.
Yeah. So as I understand, like you learn everything for free, right? Generally, in the market, people are like going behind like very expensive courses. A lot of time I get this query on my comment also, that should I purchase this particular course? Will I get a job because of that? So you can learn everything for free. Everything is available. I mean, you have your YouTube channel, you teach about Azure. I have my YouTube channel, I teach about AWS, GCP, and there are so many different channels. You can learn all of these things. So everything is free. I mean, you don't need to pay lakhs of money to learn something. The thing is, you need discipline and persistence to learn something. And once you learn it, you can also do the certification provided by this company like Azure, AWS cloud. You get certified, so your value increases in the market because those certification holds value. And then you can, get a job, or build your career inside that. So that's a really good path you had, because I also had like similar journey. I also went into the company for the internship. I learned everything there, did certification, and started my career. So this is very common in the data engineering domain. So agree with that. So I wanted to understand the getting into data engineering part and the interview part. So how do you apply for the jobs online? Like, do you use any platform, or any other tricks you have, or what type of interviews did you get as a data engineer? Yeah.
So as I told you before also, that I started my career as an intern. So I wanted to become a web developer, but instead I mapped with a data engineer project in my first organization. So I started from there only, and then I getting instructed, interested in data engineering role. What is this? What is that? How can I get a good job?
Yeah.
And at that time, the market were not very high in data engineering. So and then we were thinking, this is, like the data engineering role is not very useful for future. But after like 2020, the market is boom. We all
Yeah.
know. Like
Yeah.
now we have around thousands of jobs present in the market, and everyone is asking for data engine. Either it is Azure, AWS, or GCP. So and then after completing my internship, I wanted to change the job, change my first company. So I was looking for multiple jobs. Then I applied to Naukri.com, to LinkedIn.com, and to some of my referrals. So I remember I given around 10 interviews at the initial stage after my internship, and all were negative.
Okay.
All were negative because at that time I did not know much about the SQL related thing, because if first first round is based on Python and SQL for the data engineer role, right? So I know about the Azure related things, what is ADF, what is Azure Database, and what is the data engineering things. But I do not know much about the SQL related things. What is the join, like how can I optimize the join, which join is have to use where. Okay, so these things I did not know. So I remember like I gave an interview in multiple MNCs like Tiger Analytics, KPMG, and so on. So I do not remember the names of all the companies now. So that happened. So I failed many times. So but that is the first. That is the good part is that while giving these interviews, I got to know the
Yeah.
interview questions and the patterns also, like what they are asking, because we
Yeah.
do not know, like as a fresher, we do not know what interview want to ask, or
Yes.
those questions, what question they ask, right? So at that time I was very like, okay, कुछ हो नहीं रहा है यार, कुछ
Yeah.
मजा ही नहीं आ रहा है,
Mm-hmm.
फेल हो रहे हैं for like I failed like 10 plus interviews, and then I got a opportunity in my current organization, that is AP Moller Musk, and it is a shipping based company, if I say you. And there I like they asked me questions about SQL, Python first round, if I talk about, and the questions were medium, not very difficult questions. And then they move on the Spark architecture related things. What is Spark, and where do you optimize your job? Why to optimize the job? And suppose you have a scenario of two tables where one table is small, one table is large, and
Yeah.
why to join and how to join? Which join would you use? Whether it is a broad merge join, short merge join, and any different join what we have. Okay, so those kind of questions they ask, and then they ask about my past experience, in which project we have worked on it, and what kind of project you like, what kind of tool you have used.
I mean that's a good journey. I mean, you explained everything. So initially, the problem people face is that they keep learning but never apply for the job. So you went to the path of applying, applying, applying. You got rejected, and you understood where did you fail, where you need to improve. Okay, and then you went forward with your interviews. You also understood like what type of questions they are. So again, focusing on your weak part, then you apply for the job, and finally based on the SQL, Spark, all the basics they ask you, and you got the job, right? This is the your journey looks like getting the data engineering job. So the this is very important, and this is a good point because a lot of people struggle with this part. First of all, they don't know how much coding is required. I mean, they keep asking how kitna DSA karna hai, I don't know how much DSA is required. And second is, I mean, like they don't get the job opportunity. So I want to talk about like what type of questions they ask, like where you can practice these things.
So if I talk about Python related things, then they ask me normal questions, like we have one list and we want to reverse it. So how do you reverse it? It's a simple method, like we have a predefined functions also, but they wanted to use our own method. So I given a two-pointer approach. And after that they ask me questions about the SQL related things, like we have a two tables and join with using join those tables using inner join, and give some result.
Yeah.
So and one of the question based on based on uh, based on the window function. Okay, like I have to use row number, rank, and dense rank, and tell me the difference between these three.
Okay.
And apart from this, if they ask me about the Azure Data Factory questions. Like if you know, like whenever we create a pipeline, like whenever we create a pipeline or something, we have to create a link service in that. So sorry, Dasha, I do not know whether you know about this concept or not,
No, no, I
because
don't
you are
know.
more
Yeah,
into
okay.
AWS or GCP, as I know about you. So like in ADF, we have to create a link service, which is a connection between the source side. Okay. So at that time, they asked me, like, how do you connect your services? How can you connect your server? Like we have multiple options over there. We can pass username, password, we can pass service principal and password, and so on. So they asked me that question, and that was very wonderful question, if I say. Like there's a basic question also and the advanced question also.
Yeah.
Because people generally what they do, they they get the username and password, and we just connect to the services. But we have to know what is happening inside the loop.
Okay.
Okay. So we do not know at that time. To be honest, at that time I do not know, okay, what is the difference between these two methods, why I have chosen this method. So after that I learn about it. Okay, what this is a service principal, this is the username password things. I have to give the password at that time when, and I have to give this service principal wala things at this time. So I got to learn later on, not at that interview time. And if I talk about the coding platform, that Geek for Geeks is very best platform. We all know it is a very best platform to learn everything. And then if you want to learn a SQL as a fresher, like if you're a fresher, you want to learn a SQL, W3 School is the best website.
So as I understand, like your interview process looked like they ask you some Python SQL questions, like some of the analytical functions is rank, how to work with arrays and everything, list, and then they also ask you based on the previous experience, that is Azure. So one of the concept you explained, yeah, those like either using password or using some service account. So in AWS or GCP, what it looks like, when you are writing a code, either you can use the login and password credentials to access that account or service, or you can use some service account that is kind of like the internal link between both of the services. You can directly access it without worrying about leaking your password. So maybe these concepts were quite similar, but yeah, I mean, yeah, it should be like that. So I mean, for the viewers who don't understand, it's like the multiple ways of doing one thing. So one is maybe the secure way, depends on the requirement. So I mean, it goes beyond that, and this is where the experience and working knowledge comes into the picture, because if you have the hands-on knowledge, then you can answer these questions. So want to understand, like you've been working in this field for, let's say, 1 to 2 years now. uh, what is the like basic skill set as a fresher you need just to get started? Because if you google, I mean, like big data tools, you will find so many different resources, and the problem everyone faces is that today I will learn AWS, and then tomorrow I will work on snowflakes, on the third day I will work on airflow, or I this YouTuber told me to work on this platform, so I will learn dbt2, something like that. You keep jumping from different things to different things. So what is the basic skill set you must know just to get started and do not get distracted?
Yeah, to get started, SQL and Python, I
Okay.
would say. Only SQL and Python is enough to get into a data engineer role. And then you have to choose whether you have to go to Azure, AWS, or GCP, or any informatica related tools.
Yeah.
So like it is up to us, from in which tool we have an interest. So don't go just okay, इस यूट्यूबर ने कहा और इस गूगल में लिखा है कि AWS पढ़ लो, ऐसे नहीं करना. Like if you are interested in Azure, then go for Azure. AWS, so AWS, GCP or GCP. So I would say पहले Python plus SQL में command अच्छी कर लो. Like you have to know till intermediate level, not basic level, till intermediate. So if I talk about Python, you have to know till oops plus multi-threading concept also. That is an intermediate thing, right? And then if I talk about SQL, then till dense, sorry, till window functions and stored procedures, indexing, and so on. Like
Yeah.
I hope so that till indexing is intermediate level. And then we have multiple options, we have multiple topics we have in SQL also, but we cannot talk about right now because we are talking
Yeah.
about freshers. how to get started. So those things are okay. Now, if you want to become a data engineer in the Azure field, then start from file storage, where we are keeping our files. First, we should know where we are keeping our files and which technology, which tool we have to use. Either you have to use blob storage, like we have two things. If you know, like AWS, we have S3 bucket, right, to store the files. Likewise, we have a blob in Azure technology. Azure, a blob, and then Gen 2, Gen 1. So Gen 1 is not famous right now. So Gen 2 people are working on Gen 2. So we should know what is the difference between blob and Gen 2, which file we have to keep in blob and Gen 2. That is done. Then move on to Azure Data Factory, either Azure Data Factory or Azure Databricks. I would say work on Azure Data Factory first, because that is a UI tool. Everything is set up. We just have to fill the informations, and we can get started for that. And since it is very simple, not very simple, I would say, it is easier than Azure Database, because who do not know coding much, they can start from Azure Data Factory, learn every concept. Like, we have around 10 to 15 activities over there, like copy activity. If you want to copy the data from one place to another, what would you use? Which activity would you use? We will use copy activity, just copy one file to another location. Okay, those things we can do. And like, we have multiple activities over there, so around 10 to 15 activities are must to learn, and then we have couple of it that we can ignore as a fresher. Those things are done. Then move on to Azure Databricks. If you know Python SQL, you can simply write the SQL things also in Databricks, if we all know.
Can you explain the Databricks part? I mean, a lot of people don't know what Databricks is. So can you give the little bit information about the Databricks?
Databricks is a cloud platform where we can do a Spark related things. So if I
Okay.
say we have a file of 5 GB, you want to process it. How would you do? We can use pandas also. We can use some other related library also. I do not know. I know about pandas. So if you use pandas, what will happen? It will process the data into one machine. But if I use Spark, it will process the data into different machine based on our configuration. We can, if I open Databricks, there we have an option how many nodes, how many machine we want to in our cluster or in our machine, we can say. So if I give there 5, then data would be distributed among 5 nodes or 5 machines, and it will get processed and will return the output. So see, like, we are processing our data in 5 machines.
So this is the distributed, computing, right?
Distributed computing, so the process would be faster. And but there is one thing, that Azure Database is very, very costly.
Okay.
Very costly.
Yeah.
If I talk about pandas and those Python VMs, that is very cheaper, but Databricks is very costly. Even Azure is also very costly. So we have to think about this part also. Why, if you are choosing your career, or like if you're choosing your technology, either you have to go to Azure side or AWS side. This is also one aspect.
Yeah. So as I understand, right? So generally, as a student, you don't have to worry about these things because you'll be working in a company. So company will pay for all of these things. You just have to work, right? Right. So as a student, if you want to, they do provide like some free credits. On AWS, it's like 12 months free trial. On GCP, it's like 300 credits. Maybe on Azure, they also provide some free credits if you want to use those. Yeah, right. Yeah, so I mean, you can, if you're a student or fresher want to explore the crowd, you can just add the information about all of these things and get the free credits, so they won't charge you anything. So that's a good way. And also, if you want to get started with Azure, as like Sagar explained, like working with the blob storage, then going with the data factory because it is a UI tool, so it is much better, easy to understand, and then Databricks and writing jobs, all that. So this is like the basic tools, and this is the same on AWS and GCP also, right? S3, AWS Glue, EMR, these are the basic services One is for storage, one is for transformation, then data warehouse comes into the picture, then you store data warehouse and do the further thing. So I mean, yeah, the path looks straightforward, looks great. On Azure also, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, you can do that. One more question I wanted to understand is like what type of projects you get. Can you explain one of the project if you can share, like as a data engineer you worked on, that you also really like, that oh, this is like one of the best project? Yeah.
Yes, Darshil. So before going to that, I would add one more point in the technologies related thing, that if you are fresher, learn SQL Python is basic. Like every company will ask, either you are AWS data engineer, GCP or Azure. But up so but apart from this, you should, like, if you're working on an Azure data engineer role or planning for become a Azure data engineer role, then learn Azure Databricks, Azure Data Factory, Logic App, and if you want to learn BI related things also like Power BI, then go for that. It is
Yeah.
Power BI is also very easy, not very tough. Like that is also UI kind of thing. You should
Yeah.
know the data modeling things there, and then you should know a basic of measures. What is measures? What is DAX query? So those things also a user of a aspirant should know before jump
Okay.
to the job. Because if you know this end to end, then you are like full stack data engineer. You know back end things also, and you know front end things also. So this will impact on your resume,
Okay.
and definitely you will get a good job and for that. And
Yeah.
yeah, and now if I talk as you ask me about my project. So one project I remember in my first organization only, they, like, as I told you, there is a job of around 4 to 5 hours it was running, is if I remember. And that was a sales data. If you know, like, sales or finance data is very huge,
Yeah.
right? There I had to optimize the things. So the thing is, we are getting data daily, okay, and that is very huge data, sales data. And every time that data gets refreshed, the history data also gets refreshed. Okay, so we have to load or process the complete data, the old data also and the current data also. And then I processed that, and like before it was taking 4 hours, then it reduced to 3 hours. Not too
Okay.
much efficiency was that. If you are working on Azure Data Engineering, or if you are learning Azure Data Engineering, don't learn one thing and write in your resume. Okay, if you mention only Azure Data Factory, no one will take you.
Yeah.
Okay, so learn at least uh, everything: Azure Data Factory, SQL, Python. So even you know less, but mention everything, because this is a complete ecosystem of Azure. Because everything is dependent on something. Like Azure Blob is dependent on what? Azure Database. What would you do to store the files in Azure Blob storage? राइट, तो मतलब आपको आगे की चीजें भी आनी चाहिए उसके लिए, राइट? सो दैट्स व्हाई आई एम सेइंग, सो इफ आई एम अ बिगनर, इफ आई वांट टू स्टार्ट माय करियर जो डाटा, आई वुड से कि एंड टू एंड सीखो एंड रिज्यूमे में मेंशन कर दो, सो
Okay.
दैट जो भी इंटरव्यूअर है, जो भी कंपनी है, वो ये देख ले कि या दिस पर्सन नो एवरीथिंग, even you are expert in that or a beginner in that doesn't
Yeah.
matter. आप इंटरव्यू में संभाल लोगे. ओके, नो कंपनी वांट टू नो एवरीथिंग. ओके,
Yeah.
इन वन टेक, राइट? बेसिक भी आता तो चलेगा. लाइक, सो मैंने क्या किया था, इफ आई टॉक अबाउट माय जर्नी, आई मेंशन एवरीथिंग देयर. आई नो अबाउट द कॉन्सेप्ट. ऐसा नहीं है कि अंधी लिख दिया हो, तो सब चीज आती थी, पर थोड़ी थोड़ी. लाइक इफ आई टॉक अबाउट, आई एम गुड इन डेटा साइड. I know Data Factory, Databricks, Spark, Hadoop. Those things I'm very good. But Power BI side, I'm a bit weak. I know, okay, काम कैसे होता है. If you give me a work, I can manage somehow. So I have mentioned those things. And then I mentioned PowerShell script also, like, which is used in for automations thing. So I mentioned those things also. So my resume got selected easily, and then I got a chance. But in interview, they did not ask me much about those things. They ask me, okay, what is this? What is Power BI? Why did you use it? I just mentioned, okay, this is the process. We have to create a reports and dashboards and all those things. I created some of the measures and also and so on. So that is done.
So I understand, right? You do the basics of all the Python, SQL, everything. Also, if you work on something like Azure, if you know some of the services, mention that, and you also need to know what does that service do in real world. I mean, you should be able to explain it when the interviewer asks you, what is a database, what is the use of blob storage, right? You should be at least able to explain some of the basic fundamental of that. If you can do that, I mean, that means you know about it something. So good point. So now, I mean, we talked about a lot of things like basic skills to Azure cloud and everything. I want to talk about the money part. I mean, a lot of people run behind the money. I mean, in data engineering bahut paisa hai, so what is the average package for, I mean, like freshers, and if you have like 2 to 3 years of experience, how much you can get and how much you can scale it?
Sky is the limit if you know much,
Okay.
I would say.
But
But
what's
एक
the
बात ये भी है,
average figure if
yeah,
you want to
like
get?
like
Yeah.
like yes, sir. So but I would say one thing here. Don't run for, like, don't run for the data if you are not interested in data.
Yeah.
People क्या करते हैं, like, okay, this is my friend who is getting 20 lakh in data engineering. I will also go and apply for this job. I also learn these techs, right? So don't do, because going like, if you get a job, or if you get into this role, 1 year तो मजा आएगा. Okay, you have a josh, full josh, and then you do everything in 1 year. After that, what do you do? Okay, so don't
Exactly.
run like, okay, मेरा friend भी 20 LPA है, मैं web developer हूँ, I'm getting only 10 LPA, so I will also learn these technology and I will get a job easily. Don't do those things, because I have many friends who are doing this. They are
Yeah.
saying, okay, Sagar, you are earning well, we are in very low package, I also want to become this data engineer things, and I also get a good package in software side. I'm not earning much. Don't do that. And second things, if we talk about the package related things, sky is the limit. And if you are fresher, 1 year, I remember one of my subscriber got 8 LPA in Azure Data Engineering. He was a fresher at that time. And if you have 2 years, 3 years of experience, service-based company, even service-based company are giving you 15, 16 LPA.
Oh, holy shit! Yeah, even services companies are giving this much, uh, for 1 to 2 years. Yeah.
Product-based company, if you are well in your subject, they will give you more.
What's the average package? Do you have the figure understanding? Like, what does that look like? I mean, in general.
Yeah, so so if someone is 2, 3 years of experience, minimum 20 is fine.
Okay.
Like,
All right.
they will get
So
at least 20.
yeah. So
Because that's what happens generally. If you know, like, we all know that if we are to preparing for an interview and we given interview in one of the company, if you ask 22 LPA for an example, okay, and if I ask their 24, they will not give me 24, because they already crossed their limit and they
yeah.
already given a huge package to you. Okay, तो क्या होगा, कल कल को आप भी जाओगे, आप बोलोगे कि तुमने सागर को इतना दिया, मुझ में क्या कमी थी. So there is one, one, what do we say, एक लिमिट होती है, उनकी भी थ्रेशोल्ड होती है कि based on all the employees they give a package.
Okay.
I'm talking about a service based company.
Yeah.
I do not know about the product based company, but what I heard that product based company, they offer you more based on your
Yeah. Yes.
based on your knowledge.
Normal case in software engineering also, like product based companies generally pays well, because I mean, you need to product based companies are different culture, different products, you need to work on different segment. Service based companies, like you have the masses, so you need to divide your whatever the like company profit or the revenue into that. So I understand that. So I mean, the one point I liked was about learning data engineering or getting into data engineering because you love working on that data part, not because of the money. Because this is what people are doing. Like these days, you see like a lot of people, earning 50 lakhs, 60 lakhs per annum. So I want to learn data engineering. But what happens? It is a boring job at some extent if you don't love it, because you will be repeating one thing again and again if you work on a lot of projects, right? So it is important you love this, because if you just go behind the money, you will get burnout and you will lose interest and you will again be in the same trap. So really good point. Thank you, Sagar, for mentioning that.
And
So I guess
Darshil,
we talk.
I would like to, sorry, I would like to add one more point here. I got it's, you know, in data engineering part, we don't work on SQL, Python, and some tool. We work on business domain also. So
Exactly.
if
Yeah.
I am a data engineer or you are data engineer, after 1 year, 2 year, we have to be good in business domain of the particular company or particular client. So that's why I mentioned, don't just run, okay, मेरा friend भी इतना है तो मैं भी इतना करूंगा, right? So if you are willing to if you are willing to learn business domain of that company, go for that. So if I talk about, let's say Amazon is selling some product, right? So they have a huge data warehouse or database, everything like they have it, right? So suppose you have one requirement there, we have you have to create a report,
Yeah.
sales report, right? This product, for example, let's say this laptop, I have a HP laptop, ये laptop कितना सेल हुआ है, in which city, in which country. So you do not know from where I can get the information of this HP laptop, in which database I will get it, in which in which database I will get the information of revenue. Okay, in which database I will get the I will get the information of country and the partners and the customers.
Yeah.
Those things, if you do not know, how would you write a SQL query, right? So
Yeah.
this data domain is also one of the very important aspect. Okay, maybe if you are fresher, you will not be asked to learn domain much, but if you are going forward after 2 years, 3 years, you will be asked to learn domain.
So, I mean, understanding the business is important. I mean, as a fresher, they expect you to work on technical side, but as you want to grow in your career, like become a manager, tech lead, and everything, you should understand the business, because at the end, the reason they are using data, or the reason there is a huge demand of data science, data engineering, is because you use data to extract useful information so that business can improve their life cycle, take decisions based on data, and understand what is happening. So it is a really important point, and I generally say this to all of my subscribers, is that if you want to grow in your career, you need to also understand the business. So even if you want to do a project by yourself, right, you start with the problem, stock market data, COVID data. You need to understand that domain also. You need to understand how the stock market works if you want to do the project on that, or e-commerce domain. So that is really important, understanding the of the business. So I guess we talked a lot of different things. So is there any like final words, like if you want to share it with your subscribers? Yeah.
So like if you want to learn something, learn from scratch, and don't think like I cannot do it. Because what happens generally after 1 2 days or 1 week, we get demotivated. Okay, मेरे से नहीं हो पा रहा, right? It happens generally. It happens with me also. Maybe it happens to you. Okay, it happens to everyone, right? So लगे रहो उस पे. Maybe after 1 month, after 2 months, 3 months, you will get success. Because it happens with me, like I told you in this session that I rejected more than 10 companies.
Yeah.
Okay, I was like totally, कि यार मेरे से हो नहीं रहा. I do not know SQL at that time. I do not know Python much. I do not know XYZ technologies much. But I learned, and then I again gave in the interview, and then I got a good opportunity. Like I'm doing well in my company now, and I'm getting good pay now. So एक फेस होता है कि you think कि यार मेरे से नहीं हो पाएगा, गिव अप दे दो, गिव अप कर दो. डोंट डू इट यार. मतलब सब चीजें इजी इजी हैं. लाइक इफ यू से लाइक आज नहीं होगा तो कल जरूर होगा. आई वुड से दिस थिंग, एंड जस्ट कीप on learning, keep hustling, and one day you will get your dream job, or
Yeah.
whatever. I'm not talking about this IT related things or job related things. Whatever your goal, maybe you want to become a teacher, or you want to become some businessman, then you will get it. Yeah, one day. मतलब
Yeah.
hope मत छोड़ो, भरोसा
Yeah.
रखो अपने ऊपर, एंड भरोसा रखो तो सब चीजें होंगी.
Yes.
Yeah.
मतलब totally agree. मतलब you need to stay consistent, work hard. I mean, वो सब सारी चीजें बोलने के लिए भी होती है, बट करोगे तो भी मालूम पड़ेगा कि
यस. अब ये नहीं
सब
कि मैंने
होगा.
आज अभी हम लोग की वीडियो है तो आज वीडियो देख के कोई आके हाँ भाई मैं डेटा इंजीनियर बनूं, मैं भी सीक्वल कोडिंग सब सीख लूंगा, करेगा इंसान। आई नो लाइक अराउंड 90% पीपल यही करेंगे कि वो भी सीखने स्टार्ट कर देंगे। बट क्या होगा कि आफ्टर 1 डे 2 डे 3 डे दे गेट डिमोटिवेटेड और उनका
Exactly.
इंटरेस्ट हट जाएगा। तो ये अपने ऊपर है कि यार देखो मुझे करना है तो आज मैं करूंगा, मैं 1 वीक तक करता रहूंगा रिपीट, 2 वीक तक सेम काम करूंगा, देन यू विल गेट सक्सेस। यार मतलब एक ओवरनाइट सक्सेस नो वन विल गेट, दैट इज
Exactly.
फॉर श्योर। सो
Yeah.
इंटरेस्ट लाओ, अगर एज आई टोल्ड बिफोर ऑल्सो मेंशन बिफोर दैट, अगर इंटरेस्ट है तभी डेटा इंजीनियरिंग में जाओ। बहुत ही बोरिंग, कभी कभी बहुत बोरिंग लगता है इसमें कि एक, जैसे आपने बोला कि एक काम हम रोज करेंगे, जॉब फेल हो रही है उसको फिक्स करते रहो, यही सब काम है। और लाइक जॉब टेकिंग 5 आवर, सो व्हाट आई हैव टू डू, आई हैव टू मॉनिटर इट। okay, this is running, this dimension failed, this fact failed, okay, now this failed, then again I have to run the whole job. So that is sometimes it gets very boring thing. And if I talk about web wale things, it is interesting yeah, कि you are creating something, some some project you are creating, and you are creating some website, web application, that is more, that is more interesting. And
Yeah.
there you do not need to know a business domain,
Yeah.
because business domain is one of the toughest job, I would say. To be honest, I do not know much about domain right now. I'm learning, but I'm still learning, like बिकॉज हम सोचते हैं कि डोमेन बहुत छोटा है, बिजनेस छोटा है। टॉक, इफ यू थिंक अबाउट अमेजोन, जिसके मिलियंस बिलियंस सब्सक्राइबर्स हैं और उनके कस्टमर्स हैं, उनका बिजनेस कितना बड़ा होता होगा, उनके मॉडल्स ही अलग होते हैं। तो उनको समझना एक एक दूसरी जॉब ही होनी चाहिए, दैट इज
Yeah.
कॉल्ड बिजनेस एनालिस्ट। बट डेटा इंजीनियर को भी आना चाहिए। तो अगर लास्ट वर्ड यही है कि अगर आपको सीखना है, अगर आप सॉरी, सो लास्ट वर्ड यही, आई वुड से, आई वुड सजेस्ट कि इफ यू वांट टू बी अ डेटा इंजीनियर, फर्स्ट डिसाइड कर लो कि डेटा इंजीनियर में इंटरेस्ट है, डेटा में इंटरेस्ट है, डेटा से खेलना आपको आता है कि नहीं। अगर वो आता है तो यार आओ, बहुत ज्यादा पैसा मिलेगा यहाँ पे। टू बी ऑनेस्ट, आफ्टर 2 3 years 4 years you will get a lot money,
Yeah.
and if you have an interest then
All right. ठीक है. Okay. This is a great advice. Thank you, Sagar. I mean, thank you for coming and sharing your experience. And guys, I will put the link in the description of Sagar's YouTube channel if you want to learn about Azure Cloud, data engineering, and more of this content. I mean, he provides everything for free. So always make sure you first take advantages of the free content, because stop running behind only paid courses. Take advantages of free course content, because you will learn a lot of things from the free rather than paying for the money. So I will highly suggest you to go check out his channel, subscribe to him, and support everyone who is trying to make and teach you things. Okay, so thank you, Sagar, for joining, and I hope to see you in the future.
yeah, thank you Darshil, bye bye.
Done. So if you are still watching this particular video, then let me know in the comments I watched this video till the end, so that I will know that you actually watched this video till the end to learn all of those things. And if you did learn something new, then don't forget to hit the like button, and if you are new, then don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.